Hi, good morning, class. Uh, can you hear my voice clearly? Klaro ba? Clear? Okay, let's get started. Before we go to our lesson, first let's have a short flag ceremony. Let's start with singing our Philippine. Let's start singing our national anthem. Okay, Jonathan, lead the Panatang Makabayan. Jonathan, Jonathan, De La Cruz, lead the Panatang Makabayan. De La Cruz. Yes, Rocky.
Sir, I volunteer.
Okay, thank you very much, Rocky. Go ahead.
Ibig ko ang Pilipinas, aking lupang sinilangan, tahanan ng aking lahi. Kinukupkup ako at tinutulungan upang maging malakas, masipag at marangal. Dahil mahal ko ang Pilipinas, diringin ko ang payo ng aking mga magulang. Sundin ko ang mga tutunin ng bayan at tutuparan ko ang tungkulin ng mamayang kabayan. Naglilingkod, nag-aaral, nagdarasal ng buong bata. Iaalay ko ang aking buhay, pangarap at pagsisikap sa bansang Pilipinas.
Okay. Michi, Michi, give the class a universal prayer.
Yes, sir. Okay, brothers and sisters, please join me in prayer. Yes, good morning to you, most loving Heavenly Parents and victorious parents of heaven and earth and humankind. Heavenly Parents, thank you so much, God, for this another day that you have given to us, for giving us another chance and opportunity to do our portion of responsibility, Heavenly Parents, as this academic week, Heavenly Parents, that we could really able to be victorious, Heavenly Parents, and We asked relevant persons to be with us, developers, that we could really able to understand the lessons that were um, today, Heavenly Parents. Thank you so much, God, for everything, Heavenly Parents. We pray this on behalf of our brothers and sisters, all in Victor's Parents' name.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rocky and Lodovis Michi. Okay, now let's go to our uh, lesson. Okay, last time, we discussed a lot about uh, culture, uh, Philippine society. Last time we talked about society. We talked about culture, and there are a lot of uh, aspects of culture. Now we have art, language, symbols, behavior, etc. Then we also talk about society, the history of our society. No, we talk about history of our society, and it took us a lot of time to get here. Here, now we start with the first one, the hunter gatherer society. Right? People hunt food and gather berries. No? And then the hunter-gatherer society evolved into a different society. It evolved into more horticultural horticultural society. It's very similar to the hunter-gatherer. The horticultural society still moves around. They go from place to place, but the difference is that in a horticultural society, they may return to their previous place. For example, if they uh, if there is like say mountain, in a horticultural society, let's say you planted crops here, and then your tribe decided to go somewhere else. uh, they could create another plantation here, and then they could move to some place and then plant, and then they could return here, not to the original position. Unlike hunter gatherer, uh, there is no destination, just traveling a lot looking for food to hunt. And then horticultural horticultural evolved into agri uh it's not, it's not agricultural, it is shepherd, something with shepherd, domestic, the society with what do you call that one? Uh, where there are pastoral, right? It's called pastoral shepherd. It's called pastoral. They use more advanced techniques compared to the previous societies. No? Pastoral societies have their flocks with them, traveling with them. So if you have here tribe, a lot of people, so they have their uh, domesticated animals with them. They travel around. Sometimes they also stay on places. But again, these three are traveling society: hunter-gatherer, horticultural, and pastoral. And then these two society techniques used from horticultural and pastoral were used into the next society. This is the society where people gather around large lakes, the agricultural society. In this time, large groups of people live together as a society, unlike the previous ones where people live in tribes. The evidence for this, that people live in tribes, there are a lot of evidence. Among this is the Dunbar's number. No. Dunbar's number. Which is basically the number of people around this number, 150, maybe some have 200, 300, some have lower numbers. It's around 150 people. You know, or you're connected to at most 150 people. You are meaningfully connected to at most 150 people. Sometimes you used to have friends, but then you forget about them. Then you form new friends. But these new friends could replace old ones, the ones that you're no longer connected. Examples are your elementary friends. Some of those are no longer connected. So, but in the agricultural time, people started to settle on large lakes. If you look at our cities, example Manila, if you look at Manila, around here, if this is Luzon, I think something like this, Luzon, people gather around deltas, areas near lakes, like this one. This one has Pasig River. During the old times, during the ancient times, people gathered around large lakes. And I give you an example of the ancient Egyptian civilization. They started to gather, if this is Africa, and there is the Nile River, and this is the Nile Delta. No, around here, since the water is carrying a lot of nutrients, fertilizer, the land around here is fertile. It's a fertile land. So around this area, you can plant a lot of crops and support a large population. So you can perform agricultural, which is both uh, uses domesticate uses techniques to domesticate animals, and also plants. It's not agricultural. Oh my gosh, it's not agricultural. It should be agrarian. I mistake that too often. No, it's not agricultural. It's called agrarian. Agricultural is plants. Agrarian. I often confuse these two. Okay, so here we have large populations, around 150,000, even 10,000. Same with China, the Yangtze River. People flock together on the river. You probably heard of the Fertile Crescent in Tigris and Euphrates. Same idea. People gather around fertile lands. Okay, so after agrarian, the society evolved into a more organized, more rigid structure. After agrarian, we have the uh, feudal. If you don't have land in a feudal society, you can work for someone else. But again, due to the inequality, the greater the inequality, uh, the greater the chance that some people will be exploited. So it's actually an insult. One of the insult we use today is the word peasant. Peasant in a feudal society is a person at the bottom of the pyramid. Peasant. So you have here the nobles. The top is the king. I mean the barons here. And then we have the knights, the protector, and then at the bottom you have the peasants. Peasants. And this is not present. This hierarchy is not present during the hunter-gatherer, multicultural, or pastoral. There may be some hierarchy, but it's not this rigid. No. So maybe some could be a leader uh, at some aspect, like uh, telling the tribe where to go, telling to the tribe whether these plants are edible or not, telling the tribe how to build tools. No. Hunter-gatherer, horticultural, pastoral, there are more or less equal society. But when agrarian and the feudal society, so we have uh, greater and greater inequality, but also greater and greater wealth to distribute. So agrarian, feudal. After that, we have uh, the industrial revolution, industrial society. So as we go along in history, larger and larger population can be supported given particular land. So, but the problem with that is with more wealth, there's also a good chance that some people will accumulate a lot of it. With more wealth to distribute, now some people tend to have a lot of it. No? It's called the Pareto principle. No? So few will have a lot of wealth, and a lot will have less of wealth. It's called the Pareto principle. Okay, so our society is mostly industrial, but some are claiming that we are moving away from industrial into our contemporary society, which is a lot more cybernetic, cybernetic, which is based on the cyberspace. So, if you look at the top companies nowadays, let's look at the top companies now. So, so here you have our top companies in the world, right? Here you can see Google, which is an electronic company, electronic or cyber company. And then you have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have Amazon, you have YouTube. These are electronic companies, and it is the biggest. This used to be the biggest. Walmart used to be. These are all data. No? Here we have the uh, Apple, which is a supporter of the cyberspace. To support cyberspace, Apple, we have Facebook. Alphabet is the company handling Google. So this one, the web page we're using is under Alphabet, VeriSign, and then a lot of electronics company. uh, which is very different from a lot of wealth in a cyber era is concentrated on very few people here on top. Again, there's a lot of wealth to move around. It just happened that a lot of people here accumulate a lot of wealth. Not a lot, too much wealth. No. So if we look at Jeff Bezos, yes, how much does he have right now? So there you have it. 175 billion US dollars. That's US dollars. That's around trillion in pesos. I think so, near trillion. So it's around a whole country. Uh, can't see it here. So it's around a trillion pesos. So there's a difference between industrial era and cyberspace, the contemporary time, the time nowadays. Because in industrial, you earn a lot of wealth if you control the means of production, something sometimes it's called means of production. Basically, if you own the factories, so so in the feudal era, industrial era, agricultural era, pastoral if you own the animals, horticultural if you own the plot, some of the plot. No. So if you own uh, the means of production, you have a lot of wealth. Also, you have a lot of power. Not only wealth, you have also a lot of power. Because wealth can sometimes, well, can most of the times be converted to power. If you have a lot of wealth, like Donald Trump, no, you can pay a lot for advertisement. You can pay for your campaigns. So that's industrial. But for cyberspace, no, it's no longer we no longer rely on the means of production. Our society, uh, to generate wealth in our society nowadays, you must know how to monopolize, how to control the means of connection. So that's how you gather a lot of wealth in our society today's. Not only wealth but also power. So Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. So you have Facebook. So Facebook has a lot of users. Facebook is connecting a lot of people. It's not creating any product at all. Now, the contents in Facebook are created by uh, the people themselves who are using the Facebook platform. And then you have Twitter, same idea. Then you have Instagram, and then you have YouTube, then you have Amazon, you have Google Play, and so on. These are very large companies, and they uh, they accumulate a lot of money. So that's our society today. But some would argue that the contemporary or the cyberspace society falls under industrial because you cannot have the cyberspace without the equipment from the industrial age. No, you cannot have cyberspace without your PC, without the servers used by the companies. Okay, so this is the era today. So what did we talk about? So we have culture. We talk about culture. We talk about history. And then we talk about science, right? And some technology. Particularly in science, we talk about the foundations. Oops. the philosophical foundations of science. So there were a lot of, we talk about a lot of philosophy here. We talk about this concept. What is science? It's the study of nature and behavior of natural things and the knowledge that we obtain about them. What is philosophy? What is empiricism? What is rationalism? What is experimental science? What is theoretical physics? Then we'll talk about branches of philosophy, major branches of philosophy. Then we talk about how science evolved from natural philosophy. We also discuss the assumptions of science. And then we compare and contrast what is science and non-science. And then we talk about stances or positions you can have regarding science. So you can say that it is describing reality. You can also say that maybe it's not that. Um, okay, we haven't discussed about that. No? So, okay, before we proceed to our activity, no, I'm going to ask you. Last time I asked you about your stance here. No? Uh, Number one, philosophy is dead. Number two, science has outtrained philosophy. Number three, scientific claims are 100% true. And number four, to do science is to experiment. Okay, for now, let's have a recitation. No? Recitation tayo. Okay, let's go to focus on the first question here. Number one, is philosophy dead? Who would like to share their insights regarding this statement? Is philosophy dead? We made a joke about this one right on the first part na sana yung mga ano natin. Ayan. So ito. Uh, Sabi ni Stephen Hawking, traditionally, these are questions for philosophy, but philosophy is dead. Scientists have become the bearers of the torch of discovery in our quest for knowledge. Sabi ni Stephen Hawking. Okay. Who would like to argue for or against this statement? Let's have a graded recitation. Sige. Is philosophy dead? We discuss about this one now. Who has any idea? Anyone? When I posted this question in a Facebook group, there was a lot of debate on the comment section. They're talking about discussing about this concept. Okay, anyone of the class who would like to share their ideas? This will be relevant in your activity later. No, the first discussion. Is philosophy dead? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. Uh, so maybe you forgot, no? So, back here, we discuss about empiricism, the theory that knowledge is derived from sensory experience. So, this is a philosophical stance, empiricism. Empiricism is under epistemology, ayan o. Empiricism, yan, is a theory of knowledge. So, if you're an empiricist, you're claiming that we can learn about reality through sensing, through seeing, through tasting. I give you an example about the Coke, through observation or experiments. So that's empiricism. And then science involves experimentation and observation. In that case, science is actually an applied empiricism. Science is an applied empiricism, which is gaining knowledge through sensory experience, through tools and equipment. If so, if science is applied empiricism, then the answer here is not. Or is philosophy dead? No. In fact, it's very much alive. And that is science. So win for science is win for philosophy. Second, science has outshown philosophy? No. Third, are scientific claims 100% true? Anyone from the class who would like to give an opinion about this one? If I say if I say warm air uh, move upwards and cool air move downwards, is this claim 100% true? Are scientific claims 100% true? Anyone? Yes? Are you sure about scientific claims?
No, sir. Scientific claims aren't 100%.
Why? Why is it so?
Kasi po, before, they believe in geocentrism that
Mm-hmm.
is based on empiricist view because they are on the planet Earth and they experience the sun rotating around them as the day shifts with the night. But
Mm-hmm.
as time passed by, they have discovered the heliocentrism wherein the Earth rotates around and revolves around the sun. But maybe we can have further knowledge about it in the future if we will be having more advanced technology.
Okay, that's a
That's
very
why maybe we can discover further. So scientific claims aren't 100% true, but just like what they say, they are accurate means they are closer to truth, but not necessarily.
Alright, let's wait for your classmate, Rexy. So that was a good point you're making. Alright, let's continue, Rexy. You mentioned that. Uh,
Sir,
you mentioned
which point, sir?
heliocentrism, uh, uh, geocentrism into
Do you want
heliocentrism.
me to explain again from the top or just continue?
Continue. So you mentioned that it may change. So if it may change, then
If it may, if it can change due to the technology advancement, then the current truth may be false.
okay,
But
that's
still, as of now, still give us knowledge because it is the nearest to the truth.
nearest to the truth. Okay, that's a very good point. The last sentence you said. No, that's a very good one. Because later I have questions about that. No, and you're going to justify that statement. It is the nearest to the truth. Nearest with EST. Oh, in the end. Okay, that's a very good point you made, Rexy Belmonte. I'm going to give you 2 points for that. Celia, uh, Celia.
Yes, yes po
Okay,
sir. Yes
pang-record.
opo.
2 points for that. Any justification or anything else? Are scientific claims 100% true? Aside from that one, is there other justifications for this? If someone says that scientific claims are 100% true, what do you say about that? What would you respond? Mark, would you like to say something? Okay. Anyone else aside from Rexy? Okay, who would like to justify their position? Are scientific claims 100% true? Gelson,
Yes, sir.
why? Why do you say so?
For me, sir, it's because yeah, we we
Go
can
on.
say that
Mm.
uh, meron kasi sa religion kasi sir, hindi lahat na explain through sa mga yun nga, explain sa
Sige, sige, you may speak in Filipino if you find it difficult. I'm going to translate it in English. Say go.
me- meron kasi sa ano sir sa revelation or sa through sa Bible hindi nila ma-explain about sa through parang
Okay, I see your point. So if the Bible is 100,
tapos yung sa
say,
science kasi sir merong hindi meron sa Bible na hindi nila ma-explain na na-explain sa science kaya
oh, okay, so vice versa, no? There are some things that cannot be explained by science, uh, but there are also, let's say, no, so science and religion. There are
na
things,
na-explain sa Bible naman sir.
there are things that can be explained through a a general natin holy book, no? It could be a Bible, Quran, or Vedas, no? There can be phenomena or observations that can be explained by a holy book but
Yes
cannot
sir.
be explained by the Bible. But there are also uh, phenomena that
Ah,
cannot be explained by the holy books but can be explained by science. Okay, but it has nothing to do with some claims. Maybe they are referring to different claims, no? So if they are referring to different claims, then they could be 100% true on those domains. Sa example, ganito. Oh, saan ba yun? Gawa tayo ng Venn diagram. So, ayan. Yun na lang. So, so here we have science. And then here we have religion. Or religious references. Lagay ko na lang S. Religious references. It could be a lot. No. So there are some things that can be explained by science, and there are some things that can be explained by religion. There are some things that can be explained by, let's say, art. Here, some things can be explained uh, by other domains. No? What's that? Art. So we have law or politics and so on and so forth. No. But even if they are disjoint, so even if they are not overlapping, no, we could have claims that are 100% on 100% true in each domain. So, halimbawa, gawa ka ng scientific claim but it turns out that it is 100% true. Like that. Same with religion, it could be 100% true. Same with art. Oops. Same with art. As long as they do not overlap, they could have claims that are 100% true. So are you saying that scientific claims are 100% true? Are you saying that all scientific claims are 100% true? It is possible? Are you saying sandali. Are you saying Gelson Andoy that it is possible for scientific claims to be 100% true. Is that your position,
Yes, sir.
Gilson?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us why? Can you tell the class why? Well, you have said that it is separate from religion, but you haven't really justified why the scientific claims in the domain under science are 100% true. You haven't justified this claim.
Ano yung question mo, sir?
So, yung tanong,
If,
halimbawa makadiscover ako sa science, sabihin ko dito, the earth revolves around the hot, far is hot. Ito na lang, far is hot. This is scientific, diba? Consistent yan. You can make it accurate, and it is accurate and precise. You can repeat it many times. Far is hot. Is this statement 100% true? Far is hot?
yes, sir.
Why? Yes. Why?
Hirap i-explain.
Oh, because you experience it, no? But again, okay, sige. I think you have a very good
Na-experience
idea. Oo, na-experience natin, no? But we talk about this one before, no, sa mga philosophy dito, sa mga different philosophy. Sana ba yung what is real natin? So, dito tayo, no? Dito. So, we
Sa
cannot,
science kasi, sir, it explain all reality ba? Parang sa reality natin, sir.
okay,
Yung, yung based on reality. Tapos, yung religion kasi, sir, lang, parang, by words lang sila nag-explain.
by words lang? Are you sure? I'm not even,
evidence lang, sir.
I would not know that. Oh, sige, but anyway, sige. So, you mentioned about Far East hot because we experience it. No? Science is explaining about the real world. But again, we mentioned about the assumptions, no, of science. That statement itself, pag sinabi mong far is hot, is based upon assumptions. No, you're not it. You cannot even tell whether or not we are in a matrix. So, talagang far is hot. Paano pag i-reprogram ko yung matrix? Gawin kong far is cold. I-reprogram ko yung matrix, tapos yung ice naman, magiging hot siya. So I can change them using the matrix. But we cannot disprove the matrix, no? I've shown you a video about this one. Yung what is real, no, sa matrix. So we cannot be 100% sure. Maybe we can be confident about it, but not 100% sure. Okay, very good point, individuals in your window. So I'll give you 1.5 for that. Because later that will be used on your activity. Sige, anyone else would like to share their point of view? Ano ba yan? Ito. Scientific claims are 100% true. Okay, let's move on, no? Move on tayo. So, number 4, to do science is to experiment. To do science is to experiment. Who would like to share their thoughts about this one? To do science is to experiment.
Sir, I will go 100% with that. To do science is to experiment.
Okay, why?
I will strongly agree because as what you have just said, as science is an applied empiricism. So empiricism, you have it. Empiricism requires the five senses of the human. So through experiment, we are experiencing these five senses, like the sense of touch, maybe the sense of hearing, either one of the senses, the sense of touch, the sense of hearing, the sense of smell, the sense of the five senses, sir.
Okay, that's a very good point. But I was looking for sige, advance kasi to. Sige, I'm going to give you based on your knowledge, no, I'm going to give you 2 points for that. Sige, another 2 points for Rexy. To do science is to experiment. Yes, that is correct. But there is a what is that? There is a footnote for that. No, we say that science is applied empiricism. So that's why these things, multiverse theory, holographic universe, no, claims that are ambiguous. You cannot experiment with these things, so they are not part of science. No? So there are some domain. Okay, footnote on that. To do science is to experiment. Remember the scientific method. We mentioned about first you must make a hypothesis, and then you uh, create a setup, and then you test whether your hypothesis is accurate and precise. So if you do science, dalawa lang yung tinetest mo eh. If you're not introducing new entities like bending of like new particles or no interaction like bending of space. So, saan na ba tayo? Okay, after you create a hypothesis, then you test it, no? You test it for accuracy and precision. So, kung sakto ba talaga yan, nagtutugma ba yung hypothesis at saka experiment mo. And then you make your conclusions here. Okay, footnote on that. The footnote is regarding contemporary science, the science nowadays. Because some scientific theories have delayed testing. Yes, when you do science, you must test it. But the key here, the important thing to note is that the test doesn't have to be at the same time you created the hypothesis. So you can test it, but you can test it maybe you can test it later. It's possible that you can do it later. So let's have an example for this one. So example for this one is the Higgs boson. I mentioned about you the Higgs boson, no? So basically it's you're probably familiar with our three particles, no? Electrons, neutrons, and then protons. So probably familiar with these three. They make up the atom. But now we have the standard model. So nakaka-divide pa yan. Pwede pa yang i-divide into further smaller parts called quarks. So quarks. So yan, there are a lot of quarks. Sobra puro mga 16 around that number. So dami na nila ng quarks. So if you introduce new entities, may mas maliit pa pala, you must be able to observe that no entity. So what happened with the Higgs boson is that there was a scientist who examined the mathematics around these particles and predicted that there could be a particle that behaves in a certain way. And he called it Higgs. Well, they tried to use it. They tried to call it my God particle because it is too hard to detect. No, that's why it's called God particle. It has nothing to do with religion actually. It's called my God particle because among the quarks, it is very hard to detect. It's called the Higgs boson. By the way, that person who examined the mathematics is Peter Higgs. No, siya nag-examine. So he did math, examined the formula, no, and identified that there is this particle possible. And then around 50 to 100 years later, so binuo muna yung Large Hadron Collider. Grabe. It took scientists years, no? 150 to 100 years. Or even more, no? Just to discover that Higgs boson, which was on the mathematical models of Peter Higgs before siya na-discover. So, tanong yan, when Peter Higgs was doing mathematics, is he doing science? Well, yes, he is doing science. Although, yun nga, yung experiment is later na kinandak. So, ano ba yung sinabi kong Large Hadron Collider? So, ito siya. So, it was a news. Ito. Ayan, oh. So, hindi yan. FCC. Ito yung Large Hadron Collider. Yung accelerator, particle accelerator. So, binabangga nila yung mga particles. So, ito yung future daw na ano. So, Maybe ito naman yung sa superstring theory, no? Meron na namang mathematics na ano, na basta na ano yung mga scientists na examine sila, no? So, nagmamat-mat na naman sila. So, meron daw mga superstrings na mas maliit pa niyan. So, maybe they're going to test it doon sa mas malaki na naman na hadron collider. But the point is that when you conduct science, yes, you have to test it. But you don't have to do it at the same time, at that time, when you were creating the hypothesis. Sana tayo. Um, ito. So to do science is experiment, yes, with a footnote, no? Even if you do math without experiment, it is still considered, you are still considered doing science. No, nandun ka lang sa office mo, and then you're examining the mathematics that are describing the behavior of certain particles. Okay, sige. So, balik tayo dito. Okay, so we talk about the foundations, and then we talk about the four worldviews, no? Uh, four great worldviews. So we have the Aristotelian, medieval. So ito yung four elements muna natin, no? So you have the Aristotelian, Aristotelian. I hope I spelled that right, Aristotelian. Okay. And then that worldview, which was based on intuition, so it's more it's more non-empirical. No, it's still empirical based on observation, but it is intuitive, no, based on intuition. So we have the Aristotelian, and then it was replaced by another worldview. Now the four elements was replaced by another worldview, which is the Descartesian or Cartesian world. So this is the mechanistic universe. The universe is a clockwork. So clockwork. Okay. And then Cartesian was replaced by, so in Cartesian worldview there is no such thing as empty space. No, lahat may mga particles, may mga atoms na nagko-connect. Naka-gear, parang billiard balls na lahat connected. Parang gears. Cartesian was replaced by Newtonian. So in Newtonian worldview, there is actually an empty space. We call it empty. So there is an empty space. So because of this knowledge, he formulated his three laws of motion, no? Law of inertia, law of acceleration, and law of reaction. So, and one application of this, lagyan tayo ng mga technology, no, based from the worldview. So Aristotelian worldview, the four elements, ano mga best technology nila. So you have their medicine, the humors, the four humors, and also psychology, no, yung four personality nila, four main personality. So ito yung humor. So Aristotelian, one technology of them is the medicine based on humor. So yung inom ka, let's say you are low on blood, you will be given the medication to drink more wine, to increase the blood supply in your body. If you have excess blood, then there is bloodletting, that is taking blood away from your body. For Cartesian, one great application are the machines, steam. It happens that during Cartesian's time, no, before Cartesian to Newtonian, may tinatawag na dito na na-discover yung coal. Nandito na-discover yung coal. Which later led to the Industrial Revolution. So dito yung mga makina nila, so you probably seen yung mga kotse ng medieval. Mga kariton, karwahe yata pa. O ito, car na pala. Oh. Ayan, so ito yung mga inventions nila. What, 1680? Hindi. Karwahe. So, ayan. So, for Cartesian, mostly mga inventions from based on his worldview are gears, yung watch, watch. So anything with gears, mga gears. Kasi nga yung worldview niya is clockwork, interconnected cogs, na mga lever, and so on and so forth. For Newtonian, so we have space exploration, yung mga satellites is actually based on Newtonian, satellites. Yung nag-orbit na satellite, kahit walang gasolina, umiikot-ikot lang siya sa planet Earth. And then we have the contemporary, which is based on Einstein's theory. Einstein, and then there was a second one. Contemporary. The contemporary worldview, which is divided, unlike the previous sciences, the previous versions. This is, by the way, natural philosophy. No? Hindi pa siya tinatawag na science by that time. It's not called science yet. At the start of Cartesian, we have science proper, quote-unquote proper, then contemporary. So ito na yung nag-experiment na kailangan nang mag-experiment. Cartesian, Newtonian, contemporary. What was that? Okay, but for now, unlike the previous worldviews like Aristotelian, the precursor, the Cartesian, and Newtonian, the theories are unified. They do not contradict each other. So Aristotelian, the four elements, his theory on space, on the geocentricity, is also based on four elements. His theory on medicine, based on four elements. Psychology, based on four elements. They do not contradict. Same with Cartesian, clockwork lahat. So, lahat, as in lahat, pati space, no, clockwork. So, no contradiction. Newtonian, meron palang empty space. Yes, no contradiction. But for contemporary, we actually have a contradiction. So, the contradiction was between classical mechanics and classical physics and quantum mechanics. So, yan yung nagko-contradict dalawang to. Classical physics. So, sa kabila, on the other side, is quantum mechanics. Okay, bakit nagko-contradict yung dalawa? Because sa classical physics, we have a deterministic universe. So, halimbawa, if you have a sulat nga natin yung sinabi ko, deterministic, no? So, pag deterministic, everything moves in a predictable manner. If an object is moving on a straight line, then you can calculate where would it be in the future. Deterministic. Then we have, for quantum mechanics, it's different. We have probabilistic. Okay, they contradict. Why? Because in classical physics, say you have a sun, and something is orbiting around it. Let's say a planet. Let's have a planet. Baliktad yung kulay. No? Planet revolving around the sun. So if you use classical physics, you can calculate where would the planet be later on. After 5 days, siguro nandito siya. No? Now, for quantum mechanics, it's different. So, ito. If you have the nucleus of an atom, so nandito yung proton and electrons, proton and neutrons, and then you have, if you're going to use classical physics on atoms, so ganito yung worldview mo, ganito yung itsura. You have electron, and then you can perform math, and then you can calculate its exact location, even its speed, no? Dito siya. But based on experiments in quantum mechanics, that is not true. No, posible yung electron mo will be on different places. Now, if you have watched the Elegant Universe, yung 1 to 4, this, you can watch it if you like. So, yung electron na nandun, they perform experiments, double slit experiment. Yung electron pala, hindi diretso na umiikot-ikot na ganyan. No, probabilistic siya, parang nag-jump siya ng location. Somehow, it's jumping. Tapos, its movement can be described by a formula of waves, parang tubig. So, imbis na bato, formula for bato, like this one, like the planet, no, yung gumagana sa kanya are formula for tubig, water. As in, tubig talaga yung, kaya, for now, the illustration, a more accurate illustration of atoms is using clouds. Sana ba yung ano natin? Oops. Okay. Ayan, ito. So, ayan o. It has a function, meron siyang formula, tapos wave, hindi siya particle formula. It's not a formula about particles. So, ito yung ano niya, illustration. Palakihin ko dito. So, ayan. So, cloud. You can find it somewhere there. But not accurately. Halimbawa, nakita mo siya dito. Try mo predict yung ikot niya. Maya-maya, nandito na pala sa kabila. No, it's unpredictable, kumbaga. It's more, it's uncertain. So, yan yung contradiction ng classical physics and quantum mechanics because they have a very, very different description of the universe. One is intuitive, it can be easily understood kasi nga duro-diretso, no? And the other is unintuitive or probabilistic. Okay, so those are the topics we covered so far. No, let's have a summative exam. Summative exam tayo. Okay, you can perform this task outside the class. You can use references. You can watch videos. Try to answer or justify your position on the following questions. Later, I'm going to introduce the questions. Okay, essay. Here we have your rubric, the content. First one uses accurate evidence and example. Ayun, you can look at good resources for accurate evidence and examples. You may use your real life examples. If that is the case, I won't ask you for evidence for that. As long as it's sensible, then intuitive. And then elaborates them with insight. So you're going to explain them so that they can be understood by the reader. So that's the content. If your content is accurate and then you elaborated them, you will get 10 points, perfect points for your content. The second, same accurate pa rin, pero some key points were not elaborated. So, kung sa tingin mo yung punto mo kailangan pang i-explain, then explain it. Because if you will not, I'm going to reduce your points by 2. Okay, so explain your points with detail. So, ayan. Third, so inaccurate yung sources, and then fourth, irrelevant. So, yeah. So if you would like to get 10 points, make it accurate and explain your examples so that it is clear. And then we have the second part of the rubric, organization. The piece shows good development of thought and cohesion of ideas. Ganun lang, organize your thoughts na madali siyang maintindihan. The connection of one thought to another is unclear. Pag hindi klaro yung you mentioned one thing and then the next sentence you are talking about a different thing, then I'm going to reduce that by 2, 8. So if you have 2 or more unclear concepts, then 6. And then if it is really hard to follow, I find it very difficult not to understand what you're trying to say, then I'll give you 4. Okay, for grammar and spelling, so you have grammatical, clear from grammatical and spelling errors. 8. If you have 1 to 3, misspelled or grammatical errors, misspelling or grammatical errors. 4 to 5, you'll get lesser point. And then if you have 5 or more, then you will get 4 only. Okay, so this will be your rubric. I'm going to post this in our Google Classroom. So that's your essay rubric. Now, let's go to the questions. What are the questions on your essay? By the way, before I forgot, submit your... Sandali. Ito yung chat box nito. Okay. Submit your output to this email address. Yan. And then, encode it in a Word document, Arial 12. Okay. And then discuss using at least 2 paragraphs for each question. Okay, when creating a paragraph, follow this format. So number 1, you have an introduction. Pwede din topic. Yung topic sentence mismo. O topic, kumbaga yung main idea sinabi mo na agad, no? Topic sentence. And then you have your elaboration. So 3 sentences for elaboration or examples, no? Elaboration. In-explain mo yung topic sentence, elaboration. Pwede you're comparing it to something else. Or contrasting it to something else. Contrasting. You can also give examples. Okay, and then the last sentence will be your wrap it up. Wrap it. Very similar to topic sentence, just explained differently. So yan lang. So topic, elaboration. Pwede elaboration lahat. Pwede comparison and contrast. Lahat ng nandito. Pwede examples lahat ng nandito. So that's how you form a good paragraph. So 5 sentences. Pag 2 paragraph, so 2 ganito. Okay, now let's go to the questions na mismo. Okay, so the first one is argue for or against scientism. So scientism, your classmate mentioned that science is the best method of knowing about the real world. Even in other domains na hindi nasakop ng science. So, argue against or for that worldview. Is science really the best? The second question, among the 4 scientific worldviews, which do you think brought the most progress in the society during their time? Why do you think so? For example, Aristotelian, did it bring the most progress in society? Or is it the Newtonian? Is it the contemporary? so on and so forth. Pick two. Pick one. So number three, choose two of the four scientific world